everyone, I'm Charlie Tolhurst. Welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show for today. The 2nd of July isn't can I just say this? Hasn't June gone so quick? It's already July now. Blimey. We can't believe we're already pretty much halfway through this year of news and debate and everything. So I'm going to be sure to round more up tonight. I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up all the latest headlines. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Charlie.
Right, well, Zach, we're going to start off this show by talking about the news in Ukraine because that's dominated most of the news this week, really. Now, I want to start off with the news. I'm gonna issue this message to the Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. War crimes, war crimes, war crimes is what I'm going to say. This week, we have seen deadly airstrikes by the Russian forces in many key areas in Ukraine, key cities and towns. There have been mass destruction, many reported dead during missile blasts this week. Earlier in the week, we had an attack in Kremenchuk on a shopping centre, believed to be 1,000 people in there, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It turns out around 18 people died when first reports came out. More probably are feared to have died. However, though, the recent attack on Odessa has come true. 21 dead in the last 24 hours as a missile strike hit an apartment block in the city. I have to say, just absolutely vile and evilness from the Russian president. I cannot believe that he's now starting to really step up his attacks. This is a vile aggressor at work. Zach, what do you make of the latest scenes in Ukraine regarding the missile strikes I've just mentioned?
It's certainly been a week of rather nasty and vicious attacks on the region, Charlie, no doubt about it. It's been one of those ridiculously horrible weeks, starting with that shopping centre, Charlie, that was absolutely penetrated and destroyed by Russian forces. As I said, Charlie, 1,000 people potentially inside that shopping centre that was decimated and bombarded. I mean, I saw the CCTV footage of what was released by the Ukrainians, Charlie. Oh, my word. That was quite a sight to behold. A massive rocket just, absolutely literally commemorating a whole shopping centre, Charlie. Presumably this is a vital area of food, Charlie, and other materials that Russia have ended up destroying, basically, because you wouldn't go into a supermarket of food and necessary items, Charlie, and all that sort of thing. But it was a horrible sight, Charlie. Within hours, the Russians claimed that this attack was false or staged when they were making them repeat it on Russian state television. Obviously, we know the attack was real, Charlie, because the Russians did do it. We saw their little rocket going around bombing the centre, Charlie, as well. Now, you could see this attack, Charlie, was felt effects from the local park, which was nearby as well, in Kremenchuk as well. There was 2 missiles, I should point out, and actually, if I get it up here and show you where the attacks were, there was 2 missiles. You can see this first missile here, and then you got a second missile that hit near a park, Charlie, which you could see on the CCTV as well. I think it was one person that went in there, and I think had to go into the river, Charlie, just to avoid getting hit from debris. Heavy, even probably quite nasty debris that was flying across the sky as well, Charlie. So, it was a really vicious and nasty attack, Charlie, no doubt about it. And especially hitting missiles as well. It was a deliberate attempt, Charlie. We knew this as well. It was going to be a deliberate attempt because why would you randomly hit a shopping centre? It's obviously the reason you hit a shopping centre, a supermarket as well, for reasons. And we don't know the true figure of how many people have died, Charlie, in there. But it's like I said, there was like 1,000 people in that shopping centre, Charlie.
I mean, there's the Twitter footage. We can see that. I
there's
mean,
the footage. I mean,
just look at
goodness
this.
me. It's quite incredible. This is the one where it hit the park, Charlie. And you watch carefully as well. I mean, once they come up to it, watch carefully, because I believe you're going to see a moment where I can't remember. I don't know if it was on this one. Oh, here we go. This is it. Look, watch one of these people, right? Okay, having to run and end up having to go up in the river. Look, oh, you can see the strike there. Look, all the debris coming around, and he has to go into the river to actually avoid the debris. Charlie, it was a horrible scene. Nevertheless, Charlie, but it was. Oh, I have to say, that was an evil, wicked scene, Charlie. Seeing a shopping centre demolished like that. This was the shopping centre beforehand, by the way. It's called Amatop. It's got loads of retail areas as well. And this is running as usual, Charlie. And now that's just a bunch of pieces now, that shopping centre, Charlie. It's really bad. As well, and we mentioned as well the Odessa one, Charlie, where there was rockets, Soviet X-22 rockets, that's been used to kill in a residential area, Charlie. As well, it's been a ridiculous week, Charlie, where rockets have been launched indiscriminately at areas that do not deserve to be targeted at, Charlie. There's no doubt about it. And destruction that Russia continue to use is barbaric and quite sad, quite frankly, Charlie. So yeah, it's a really terrible scene with what's going on, and it's quite disgusting, really.
Yeah, what can I just say? This reminds me of what we saw in the Second World War with Germany attacking London. You see, when you watch the scenes of the Blitz and London being bombed 57 consecutive nights with all the rubble and that towns and cities were pounded with during the Second World War, it's honestly like what Ukraine is suffering through at the moment. It is tragic, it is horrendous, and thank goodness some of them people took cover very rapidly after that missile strike in Kremenchuk, especially during earlier this week, when that missile did land on that shopping centre, which probably was like a blue water for Ukraine in a way, having loads of shops in there. But yeah, just, can I say, it was horrible. But whilst we're on the subject of Ukraine, the G7 leaders convened this week to discuss the situation regarding the war. There is now 3,000 extra NATO troops that have been deployed on the borders, and they are there ready with combat training in mind. Now, Zach, what did you make to the G7 leaders attending this NATO summit the other day in Madrid?
Yeah, it was quite an important summit, I think, Charlie, because obviously there was the annual yearly G7 meeting that is normally held every year. Last year, remember, it was in Cornwall. This year, it was in the very lovely sites of Germany, I have to say, Charlie. Very nice location they held it, actually. Nice green and quite nice viewing location, you have to say, as well. A little less crowded and a bit more rural, I have to say, from what I saw, Charlie. Yeah, but it was a very, I think, important meeting. No doubt about it, Charlie. There was several things that was this. Hang on. Oh, okay. Hang on. Okay, that's all right.
Okay, guys. I see Zach has had to.
Sorry
Oh, Zach, you're on now.
Yeah. Sorry about that, mate.
Right, let's continue with the show, guys.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but basically, yeah, there was this G7 summit meeting as well over the weekend, Charlie. As well as Oleg Scholz was obviously the host of it. Going on, and obviously it was joined by the European Union as well. There was obviously key discussions, Charlie, on like stuff like global economy, partnerships, foreign policy. And I think President Zelensky, I think, joined in as well virtually from what I saw, Charlie, as well. He made some pretty crucial comments from what I read as well, Charlie. It was a very important meeting, but yeah, basically it was a lot of aid that was announced, important measures, basically. It was obviously very important for Ukraine. as well. So yeah, it very, very important meeting. It looked very united, I have to say, Charlie, as well. And yes, it was very important. I have to say, it was very united from what I saw. Very, very crucial messages. And it looks like the G7 agreed on most things. And I think one of the measures as well, if I remember, Charlie, was the ban of Russian gold, I believe, importers as well. So yeah, it was an important measure, I think, Charlie, no doubt about that.
Yeah, Zach, it's very interesting because I've just found out that during the week of that summit, Boris Johnson had an interview where he was asked a question about Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, this is what he had. He said this, and I'm going to play for you the interview in a minute. He said that if Putin wasn't a woman, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. So we have seen Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine as a man, and if he was a woman, he wouldn't invade it. Now, my guess is that that's to do with some Vladimir Putin being seen on a horse topless around his neighbouring country. I mean, I have to say, Zach, what did you make to Johnson's comment the other day about the Prussian president?
I found that a little bit cringy and a bit toxic masculinity, and a bit. I don't see what the relevance of that would be. I mean, I can imagine if Vladimir Putin was a girl, he probably would have invaded. You know, is he basically saying that men are stronger than women? Basically, yeah. I think that was a little bit cringe, if you ask me, Charlie. I think it was a little bit and awkwardly cringe, no doubt about it. But would he have been done it a woman? Yeah, personally, I think he would have. If Putin was a woman, he would have done it. I mean, it's no different to what probably Kim Jong-un's sister probably would have been supporting him in all these bombings and all that sort of thing. And I think it was Marie Le Pen who's probably pro-Russian in some ways, and she would have done it if she was Vladimir Putin, played the role of Vladimir Putin. No doubt about it. I think it's a bit of a cringe and sort of weird comment. I mean, I couldn't care about Vladimir Putin being topless personally. It's up to him whether he goes around the country wearing a top or not. I don't really care, really, quite frankly. I mean, it's cringe, but yeah, it's up to him.
Well, I've got the interview for you now, though. This was when Boris Johnson had the interview earlier this week when he claimed that if Vladimir Putin was a woman, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Have a listen to this.
Yeah, great to see you. Thank you. So, is the Welt... you need more women in positions of power. If Putin was a woman, which he obviously isn't, but if he were, I really don't think he would have embarked on a crazy macho war of invasion and violence in the way that he has. If you want a perfect example of toxic masculinity, it's what he's doing in Ukraine. I think that it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend that this can be done quickly. But I think what was so striking from the conversations is that people really do want to give the Ukrainians strategic endurance. And I think what everybody agrees is they want to give him, the Ukrainian government, we can't be more Ukrainian than the Ukrainian, right? You know, it's for them to decide. But they want to help Zelensky to get in the best possible position to talk if and when talks eventually come. And so that's the strategy right now.
Aber Prime Minister, ich glaube, was viele Menschen in Deutschland und sicherlich auch in Großbritannien.
And you know, there is always going to be lots of opinions about that. And I'm just going to say that the faster it recedes behind us in the universe, we leave that event behind us, the better. And actually, I think the mood is really changing in a more positive way.
Thank you very much for being with us. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just see. Bye, everybody. Good. The gift for.
Thank you there to Boris Johnson for that interview there. By the way, that was, I believe, on Dutch TV, I think, or German TV, one of the languages. So it is very, very interesting there, guys. So yeah, and we've just lost Zach for the minute there. We'll get you back.
I'm here, mate.
So with that's the Vladimir Putin comment there done. More on that later on in the show, please, guys, comment down below what you make of Boris Johnson's comment about Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying if Putin was a woman, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Please let me know on that. But staying on now with the show, let's go to Britain this week now. I want to go back to the UK now. And there's been some breaking news today regarding Chris Pincher, who I believe has been suspended from his role as chief whip of the Conservative Party. This is to do, I believe, with more allegations of harassment. Oh, is this more? Here we go. So we've got in America, we've had a former New York governor standing down, Andrew Cuomo standing down over allegations of sexual assault or harassment, to seeing more of like the same from a British chief whip who's had to stand down from his role. He's done the honourable thing, but could he get kicked out of the party, Zach? Remains to be a question.
Well, yeah, and he's had the Conservative whip gone. I mean, goodness me, Charlie, think about it. 48 hours ago, he was the deputy chief whip. Now he no longer has a whip. That's quite a sort of a river sink, if you want to say, of being a whip, being a let's say pincher by name, pincher by action. And I don't say that in a really positive light, Charlie, and I say that in a quite serious way, Charlie, as well. I mean, some of the stuff we've heard, like, as well, Charlie. The reason why he got suspended, by the way, is because he had he was at the parliamentary bar, Charlie, and was too drunk, basically. He then apparently groped two men whilst he was in that bar, Charlie. I mean, that was quite ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, yeah, just to confirm, it does appear he's gay, which is obviously understandable, which is good, which is fine, but it doesn't excuse those actions, Charlie, nevertheless. I mean, groping is unacceptable, whoever you are, Charlie. I think, you know, his actions are totally intolerable. But then there's been, again, Charlie, there's been more allegations recently since, obviously, he resigned as deputy chief whip. The position that Conservatives have, which was totally I can't believe they held this position, was that because he resigned, he wasn't going to have the whip suspended off of him. And that was a totally unimaginable position for many Conservative MPs, from what I've read. And eventually he did get the whip withdrawn. And then there's more allegations that have come out about his past as well, and some of the stuff that he's done. And then there's Boris Johnson is also in the spotlight as well, Charlie, because it looks like Boris Johnson potentially knew some of these allegations before he appointed Chris Pincher as deputy chief whip, which obviously, if that's true, then that's not good, that you're just going to randomly promote potentially someone who's done sexual assault to a senior position, Charlie, who probably deals with sexual assault. I mean, that's a really serious matter, nevertheless, Charlie. But yeah, it was quite a dreadful experience for Boris to be in, unfortunately. But I'm afraid he's no better as well if he knew these allegations were true or not. I mean, it shows a bit of failure on his part to read the room. But Chris Pincher rightly getting suspended after a bit of pressure, I think it was the right thing to do, Charlie. No doubt about it.
I mean, Zach is an interesting one, and I have to say, I agree. I think he's got to go in a situation like this. You got to stand down. It's not the right thing to do. I condemn what happened. So yeah, frankly, that's all I'm going to say on that. Moving on now to the sport briefing, which is the next part of the show now, where we're going to be talking about all things sports news now. This is the Charlie Tolhurst Show live on YouTube. We're going to talk about the Formula One British Grand Prix now. Yes, if you were up here in the southeast of England, the weather contrast was very different to those of you at Silverstone, where the temperature was a lot cooler and up here was much warmer. Thankfully, around over 20 degrees here in the southeast of England, here in Basildon. But at Silverstone, a pretty soggy qualifying, and Zach, Carlos Sainz for Ferrari taking his maiden pole position in the Scarlet car.
And well deserved as well, Charlie. I think personally for me, it was very well deserved pole position as well. It was a great lap. And he obviously capitalised on Max Verstappen making an early mistake, Charlie, of spinning out just towards the end of his lap, and then couldn't materialise it on his last critical important laps. Now, keep in mind, Charlie, they've all been there. Considering this was a wet track, they weren't just doing just 2 laps and then 2 laps runs. They were doing multiple lap runs. They were doing some, I think, were doing 4 or 5, Charlie, at least, because of the wet and changing conditions. Sainz managed to get the fastest lap in and improve whilst the track was evolving, whilst Verstappen couldn't materialise on new inters, and therefore he was behind. There was Leclerc in 3rd. Perez was all right in 4th. I mean, he could have done better at the end of the day. I think Hamilton will feel happy about his performance, Charlie. 5th, out qualifying George Russell. It's been a bit struggling all weekend, I think, Charlie, throughout. Norris will be incredibly impressed with his performance in 6th. Alonso obviously didn't reach the height of his 2nd place last time out in qualifying. It was obviously 7th. Russell, as I said, a bit of a weak qualifying. I mean, he didn't find the grip at the end of the day, Charlie, unfortunately. And yeah, so that fortunately happened. Special shout out Guan Yu Zhou, Charlie. Very good qualifying for him. 9th position, great result for Alpha.
And Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, first ever time getting through to Q3.
Oh, Charlie, that when you want somebody to impress, Charlie, there is a Williams to impress, no doubt about it. As well, he's so good at this. He generally, Williams are so good at surprising people when needed to be. Nicholas Latifi, welcome to that club. I mean, maybe this is just a one-off, Charlie. Top 10 for him, great result. Absolute great result. Gasly, less could be said. He could have done better. So could have Valtteri, Bottas, Tsunoda. Another poor qualifying for Ricciardo, Charlie in 14th. Ocon, another poor qualifying as well. Alex Albon got screwed over at the end of Q1, Charlie. Missed out on the top, the 15. Kevin Magnussen, the poor qualifying Hasses at 17th, 19th, and 18th was Vettel, another poor qualifying. And Lance Stroll is dead last. Yeah, Aston Martin's wet weather qualifying don't seem to be particularly brilliant, Charlie, at the moment. And nor is Lance Stroll's at the moment. I'm just going to get my drink and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'll go over, guys, some of the other action that was on today. I just want to say on the F1 regarding the setups and upgrades that teams brought. Mercedes brought some upgrades. Lewis Hamilton running those in practice. Williams brought some upgrades, but only on Alex Albon's car. Nicholas Latifi's due to get that, I think, at the next race in Austria as well. Some different designs on the bars balls there for Williams. Aston Martin, I think, brought some upgrades. We saw Ferrari running a slightly different setup on their rear wing. A slightly lower rear wing, in fact, more like the Red Bull rear wing we've seen, just to try and get a bit more top speed from their car and performance during free practice. So we have had some very interesting data that's analysed very closely to all of the fans here during practice that we got to see loads of running. So yeah, it has been an interesting session. Obviously, we've got the race tomorrow. Anyone can win. And we just have to wait and see in 52 laps who will claim the silverware for the British Grand Prix. Last year, guys, it all ended at turn 9 for Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So will it be a repeat of that, or do you think we'll be in for a different race tomorrow?
Who knows?
Let's hope so. That will be available on Sky Sports F1 and also on Channel 4 as well. Channel 4 will be providing coverage for the British Grand Prix as well. But before we move on, I'm going to talk about W Series now. Whilst here, an unusual addition to this show, the W Series now, because the W Series is a women's motorsport racing series. It's just primarily for women. Okay, they race in single-seaters, very similar to Formula 4 spec cars, Formula 3 spec cars, should I say, and what they use. And Zach, Jamie Chadwick is on an incredible run of results at the moment because she's the only driver this season to win on the entire grid.
She'll probably be wrapping the championship up in two races time, knowing how well she's doing, Charlie. I mean, it's just been maximum points. Silverstone, as you expect, Charlie. maximum points. No doubt about it. I mean, she's incredible driver, Charlie. No doubt about it. And today as well, I mean, it proved an example of that as well. No doubt about it. Let me get the results up, Charlie. Obviously, he won, and then there was a bit of an incident towards the end, Charlie. There was oh, hello, I've got something else as well. But there was a bit of an incident towards the end.
The incident, just to let you know, guys, that was between Emmett Kimmelainen and Abby Pulling. That happened at the that was at the chicane, the final chicane there, going into Vale. Abby Pulling and Emma Kimmelainen both came together, and they both finished second and third in the end of the day. But it wasn't exactly plain sailing for both two drivers, as we're about to see with the results, because I'm not sure whether the results have been updated. You guys.
Yeah, no, they despite that collision, Charlie, I think they finished where they basically collided, because I think Kimmelainen was second and Abby Pulling was third. And I think at the end of the day, they finished where they collided, basically, which was second and third. So they basically, I think it was Abby Pulling that did a really quiet move on Emma Kimmelainen. And I think personally, in my view, Abby Pulling's move wasn't necessary. And I think it was a bit too late. But at the end of the day, it doesn't appear that much action taken against him, because Abby Pulling is still third, Emma Kimmelainen was second. But I have to talk about as well, Charlie, what happened to Alice Powell at the beginning of the race, because she stalled on the grid. And the rules are that if you stall on the grid, as long as you don't drop to the back, you can regain your position. But there's also a point, Charlie, where you have to be at a certain point before you have to be before the safety car line to actually regain your position. If you overtake after the safety car line, then you are going to be penalised. And Alice Powell, unfortunately, whilst she managed to start in a position, she overtook after the safety car line, which meant that she got a 10-second stop and go penalty. So while she started third, she only finished in 14th because of the penalties, Charlie. I mean, that was a dreadful situation for her. It's a poor weekend for Alice Powell overall, Charlie. I mean, that was quite a mistake to make on the formation lap of the race, Charlie. No doubt about it.
Embarrassment. I have to say, it's an embarrassment to see something like that happen. I have the standings up for you here officially. I finally got the W Series standings up. It was Jamie Chadwick who continues her superb run of form with a win. Emma Kimmelainen second, Abby Pulling third, Fabian Volven was fourth, Biska Visser fifth, Jessica Hawkins, a former driver in the British Touring Car Championship on several occasions, sixth, Abby Eaton seventh, Belinda Garcia eighth, Nerea Marti ninth, and Sarah Moore completing the top 10 there. And Alice Powell 14th in the end after a pretty shocking race as well. I am not sure if there is another W Series race tomorrow. I think there's usually a couple of races for each weekend. But if so, all I can say is Jamie Chadwick leads the championship after that one. And it's clear to me, if she continues that form, she will be the champion of that for sure. Can we get Jamie Chadwick into single-seaters in with the men's, Formula 3, Formula 2, possibly even F1 at some point? Please let me know down in the comments below what you think to Jamie Chadwick. Also at Silverstone this weekend, shout out to Matt Gallagher and the WTF1 team in the clubhouse, because I actually got the F1 2022 game today and I had a blast playing on some of the new tracks, Miami, and the new cars, I have to say, drive really well. So if you're down there, go and challenge WTF1 or go and challenge Lando Norris on one of those simulators on the new game. I'm happy to announce that for sure. Moving on now from the Formula 1 and W Series, let's talk now about Formula E. Now, by the way, guys, I haven't watched the race. I did see a little bit at the end of it, but I will watch the highlights fully back. They were in Marrakesh this week. I got the venue wrong last time. I said Marrakesh. It was actually Jakarta, where the race was taking place. It was Marrakesh this time round where the race was. And let's go, guys, to have a look at the results. And it was Eduardo Mortara, Zach, who claimed top honours in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a mouthful of biscuits here as well. But yeah, it was Matara that won the pre as well. Very close, I have to say, at the end, towards the end, Charlie. Just managed to get ahead of it towards the end, managed to pull ahead as well. But yeah, De Costa, by the way, got the pole position, as you can tell. They've started the race from pole, and therefore got an extra 3 points out of it as well. But yeah, he just didn't. He managed to get overtaken by Mortara. And then, whilst he did game a little bit towards the end, he also managed to pull back eventually as well, Charlie. There was a close battle for the podium, Charlie, as well. Mitch Evans just managed to sneak ahead of John-Eric Verne, Charlie, as well. Lucas Degrassi, good job race for him, I think, got him from 5th to 10th.
And fastest lap as well for Degrassi, if that's an extra point for that.
Yeah, good job by him. Nick De Vries, 6th. Jake Dennis, 7th. Stoffel Van Dorn, a good recovery drive from 20th to 8th, Charlie. Sam Bird, 9th. Oliver Rowan, 10th. Oliver Askew, 11th. Bit of a poor race for him because he was start from the top 10.
And Porsche having a shocker, Zach, because both of their drivers not even in the points.
12th and 15th, Charlie. Dreadful races for the Porsches, no doubt about it. Nick Cassidy and Alex Sim, 13th and 14th, Charlie, as well. And Andrew Lotta, 15th. Boemi, 16th. Oliver Turvey, 17th. Robin Fright, 18th. Antonio Giovinazzi, 19th. Sergio Cesar Cameras, 20th.
And the non-finishers, Maxi Gunter and Dan Tickton.
Yeah, non-finishers as well for that one. They didn't finish the race. Dan Tickton had a problem early on, forced to retire. And Gunter as well, eventually retiring from the race as well. That's pretty much as well. What that means in the driver's standing, Charlie, is Eduardo Montana has now overtaken John to become the driver's standing leader as well, Charlie. Stoffel Van Dorn has gone from one weekend from the leader to 3rd position, Charlie. John Verne has now overtook him as well. Mitch Evans is now close behind it in 4th position. So these are the drivers at contention, Charlie. There are just 15 points between Mitch Evans and Edward Montara. So the top 4 are separated by 15 points, Charlie. And I think, if I remember rightly, we got 6 races to go, Charlie. We got 6 races to go in New York, in London, and I believe Korea is going to end
Seoul's the last race, double header there.
So it's going to be double headers now, Charlie, until the end of the season now, Charlie. 2 in New York, 2 in London, and 2 in Seoul. New York is going to be in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, 2 weeks' time. It's not long away, guys, and trust me, it will go quick. And of course, it's going to be interesting to say the least. So I'll just give you a quick update of where the next races will go. So we go to North Korea, New York City next on the 16th, 17th of July. The 30th to the 31st of July, we go to London. And then the final race will be in the summer holidays of August. And that will be at, of course, Seoul. I think it's mid-August, around then. The final race is held. That will be where the former site of the 1988 Summer Olympic Games were held in Seoul. It actually goes through a stadium, by what I'm hearing, this track as well. So it looks cool. More on that later. Now, moving on now to NASCAR in the next part of the sport briefing, because NASCAR raced at, if I can get the Nashville, that was it, Nashville. Thank you. It's in my head now. Nashville Super Speedway last week. And yeah, Chase Elliott winning his 2nd race of the season after winning earlier on in the year as well. Forgot the venue that he last won at, but he takes his 2nd win of the season anyway. But it's that interesting race, Nashville, because there was a couple of big pileups in that race.
Yes, and a few rain delays as well, Charlie. It started raining at several points as well. There was a few delays due to lightning within 8 kilometers, I believe, of the area as well, and that mandated 30-minute red flags, Charlie. So it was raining quite a bit as well. So there was a few delays, but obviously because it's a nighttime facility, Charlie, they were able to race under the lights, which was good news, and it resulted in Chase Elliott managed to win the race ahead of Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Carl Larson fourth, Ross Chastain fifth, Charlie, Denny Hamlin in sixth, Austin Cindric seventh, Christopher Bell eighth, Joe Logano ninth, and Kevin Harvick 10th. As well, important race as well for Chase Elliott to win as well. It's the second race, win of said, of the season, and very important one as well, Charlie. I mean, it was a very critical one, no doubt about it, to get to win as well, and managed to continue to get to be in the chase, Charlie. Now, let me tell you the standings at the moment, Charlie, because I think it's very important to tell you who has actually won, Charlie, at the moment. Because if you do win a race, then you are in the playoff, and we're halfway through now the season, and we're probably going to have 8 or 9 races until the playoff, Charlie. So Chase Elliott is actually now in the standings lead, Charlie, I believe. Yeah, he's actually in the standings lead now at the moment, Charlie. Overtook Ross Chastain, actually. Chase Elliott and Chastain has won races this season ahead of, I think it's Kurt Busch, I think it is. Yeah, there we go. Yes, ahead of Carl Busch, actually. Sorry, my bad. Joe Logano, Carl Larson, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez have all won races this year. So if we take that up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 drivers have won races this season, Charlie, which means it means that 4 will go through at this rate or based on points. Now, that could be that 4 more drivers win races, and therefore the top 16 could be locked out, and then it will come down to who's on points to be able to get through to the last 16, Charlie. But Ryan Blaney has the most points outside the winners at the moment, Charlie. And if nobody else wins, apart from the ones that have already won, then he would get a chase spot alongside Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, and Kevin Harvick would be those who would get into the playoffs on points, not wins at the moment, Charlie. So it's all to play for at the moment. But Road America could be all the changes of that, Charlie.
We do have some updates from Road America whilst we're here as well, because I think we have the pole position, Busch Light pole announced today. If I can get that up for you right now, that is awarded to Chase Elliott.
Yes. Chase Elliott got pole time just ahead of Chase Briscoe, and it's Carl Larson first, and third, Tyler Reddick fourth, Austin Cindric fifth, Michael McDowell sixth, Chris Buescher seventh, Alex Bowman eighth, and then a good qualifying, Charlie, for Joey Hand in ninth. Bloody hell. That's a name you don't see very often. Just Joey Hand. Not a very experienced driver, Charlie, in ninth. And then Cole Custer in 10th. Joey Hand, I have to say, Charlie, very, very impressive qualifying for him. He is 35th in the Cup standings, Charlie. And he qualified in 9th position. Very impressive for him. No doubt about it, Charlie. It's very impressive qualifying overall.
Yeah.
And the Xfinity Series race is currently ongoing, Charlie. At the moment, it's Cole Custer that is leading at the moment ahead of Kyle Larson and Ty Gibb in third position, Charlie. There's a 1.5 second gap between the top 3 at the moment, Charlie. They're on lap 33 at the moment with 13 laps to go at the moment, Charlie. The race is still happening there. The Cup race is happening tomorrow at 8 p.m. UK time as well, Charlie. It's July the 4th weekend as well in America, so it'll be quite a race there as well. So yeah, the race is tomorrow at 8 p.m. UK time. The Xfinity race has 13 laps to go still at the moment, Charlie, with Cole Custer leading at the moment.
That is the Henry 180, and I think this is the Jockey Made in America 2 350 for the NASCAR Cup Series. But yeah, it's a big race. Camping World Truck Series, that goes to Mid-Ohio, just to let you know, guys, in terms of updates to that. That is on the 10th of the 9th of July, going to Mid-Ohio. Mid-Ohio, I think that's following the IndyCar schedule, I'm pretty sure. Xfinity go to Atlanta, and Quaker State go to Atlanta. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure the IndyCar season, I'm just going to double check, guys. on the IndyCar section, IndyCar there as well. No, IndyCar is on this weekend. My apologies. That has now been decided, Zach, and Patricio O'Ward on pole for that race. The IndyCar section.
Yeah, Patricia Award on pole for that one, Charlie. That he got the pole there in the Arrow McLaren as well. Good qualifying for him as well. Well done to him as well. And he got ahead of. There was a bad day, particularly, Charlie. Let me tell you who a particularly bad day for. Will Power. For Will Power, Charlie. I'll get the results up somewhere, Charlie, because Will Power had a terrible qualifying. As well, if I can find it. Oh, I can't find it. Never mind. He finished 11th, Charlie, in his first qualifying group, Charlie. As well, poor qualifying for him as well. It was a dreadful qualifying, but in the fast six, Charlie, it was Pato Ward ahead of Scott McLaughlin and Colton Hurd in third, Felix Redcliffe fourth, Scott Dixon fifth, Simon Pagenaud sixth. As well, Alex Palou seventh, David Lucas eighth, Carl Kirkwood ninth, Cam Eilert 10th, Reen 3K 11th, and Alexander Rossi in 12th position. But Will Power, as I said, Charlie, is going to start from the back, and so is Joseph Newgarden, Charlie, with a very poor qualifying as well. So yeah, few improvements worked for them two to be done at tomorrow's race, Charlie, which I believe is at 5:36 p.m. UK time.
Yep.
As well. Yeah.
Yep. Tomorrow evening, you'll be able to watch that race at Mid-Ohio for the IndyCar series. Wow, isn't that a big day of motorsport complete for that? Tomorrow, British Grand Prix is the headliner for that event. Now it's time for Charlie's good news now. The segment where I bring joy to your airwaves and positive news to your doorstep. So let's go and have a look, guys, at what has been in the news this week. Charlie's good news, Charlie's take, what you're going to be talking about. Well, let's have a talk this week about some local news in particular. Now, I want to start off by talking about this. Now, it is local to myself. It is street art. Southend is set to have a 3-day street art festival. So let's go across exactly what this article is going to say. Now, the city of Southend will be filled with life and colour when a new street art event arrives later this year. Southend City Jam will be held on the streets across Southend in September in celebration of some of the town area's best artists. Plans include epic large-scale street art paintings on buildings throughout the city, as well as art workshops, live art and music. Sarah Boundy, 47 from Eastwood, said her two daughters, 9 and 14, will love the event and it hopes to bring energy to Southend. She thinks it'd be amazing. The event will bring life and colour to Southend. Now, the festival is due to run between the 2nd to the 4th of September, and we'll see the seafront play host to a number of artists putting on displays, which will show visitors and how they produce the work. Southend-based Pigs Bay Distillery, which produces high-end spirits and liqueurs, has been announced as a new sponsor for the big 3-day festival. That is between the 2nd and the 4th of September. You can actually see some action there of one of the street artists there on a creation of artwork in Southend. And I think also Scott Irving, who, shout out to him, used to work at a school I used to go to. Shout out to him if you're tuning in to watch Charlie Tolhurst show tonight. Actually is also a street artist, a local street artist. He lives in, I think, Southend, who has actually created some pretty cool artwork. I mean, just look at this, guys. I mean, before I go, I just want to show you some of his artwork quickly. Because he is he's a fantastic artist, very talented. I just want to say, I'm not even sure if this is the right Scott Irving here. Is Scott, basically this guy's name.
It could do it regardless. It looks good regardless of what it is.
Yeah, I'll show you the guys now. He's a spray painter.
There we go.
Here we go. So Brave Arts. It's all available on LinkedIn. I'll get it up for you now. this is basically what he does. I'll show you some of the pictures now of what he does. There was actually one. So here we go, guys. This is what he has actually done. We've got a picture there of Sir David Attenborough mural, which has been painted painted to something here. It will transform an Essex car park wall. You've got an artistic barbershop. You've also got that as well. And he's also at work there as well, creating other various forms of artwork. And that is Scott Irving pictured there. That is the artist who is responsible for creating some of the best and most interesting local street art that you will find. Zach, what do you make to this festival for Southend?
Oh, it's a great festival, Charlie. If you look at the art, they're incredible. They're colourful. They're powerful. They're energetic. And I have to say, in terms of Charlie, you're not supposed to feel like energetic when looking at art or anything like that. But looking at it, it makes you want to think, whoa. But yeah, very, very cool designs, Charlie. No doubt about it. I would certainly go if I wanted to, Charlie. No doubt about it. But yeah, it's great. It's a great festival, Charlie, by the looks of it. And the art is stunning. So hopefully there'll be a lot of people there.
We need to recognise arts more, to be honest, because our arts are such a big industry. In general, the art industry has been hit so hard by pandemic. The performing arts sector, and that just really struggling to get out and perform shows. Now they can. But yeah, in general, street art is it's a very popular thing on trend at the moment. You see a lot of streetwear out there. It's very cool, isn't it? So yeah, that's all I can say on that one. Time to talk now about the latest national newspaper headlines, where we've got plenty of newspapers to get through tonight. Tomorrow's papers today, probably most of tomorrow's papers have now been released. We have a couple of papers for tomorrow. I'm going to go over the two that are pictured up here first, but we're also going to update the feed so we can get an update on more papers. Well, let's start with this one. The Independent for Sunday goes, Tory MP claims he was groped twice by a Pincher. Is this more to do with Chris Pincher being in the Tory party? The Observer goes, Johnson faces official probe on plan to build 40 new hospitals as well. Zach, what do you make to the latest two papers released?
Yeah, I've also got a bit more up here as well. I'll come through in a minute, Charlie. Let's start with the Independent first of all. Tory MP claims to be groped twice by Pincher. This is obviously a new allegation, Charlie, of another groping that Chris Pincher, Pincher by name, Pincher by action, by the sounds of it, has, I'm afraid, been doing. It's an anonymous Conservative MP, obviously telling sources at the Independent that he was groped on 2 occasions by Pincher, obviously as well. On the condition of anonymity, the man claims that he was targeted twice into 2021 and again last month. I have to say, Charlie, if he's been pinching people behind the scenes last month whilst being the deputy chief whip, dearie me, that's astonishing. I don't know how it went undetected as well, Charlie. One allegation of assault took place within the Palmy estate in June, where the man claims Mr. Pincher deliberately tucked his genitals through his clothing and refused to remove his hands. When asked, Charlie, he put his hand on my crotch and moved it around. I shook my head and said, no, I don't want that. But he just smiled and carried on until I was able to move away. That's some horrible allegations that's been made, Charlie, and quite serious ones as well. I mean, no surprise, one that he's lost the whip, if he's basically doing that and getting drunk and all that sort of thing as well. The Observer, Charlie, let's do that one as well. Johnson faces official probe and plan for 40 new hospitals. Well, I'm not surprised, to be fair, he's facing an allegation in this one, Charlie, because the way he words it, it's just, you know, he always does this, Charlie, where he manifesto commitment. He announced he's going to build 40 new hospitals. Yet in the little print, if I remember from that 2019 manifesto, Charlie, he said that that I think it was like 30 odd of them would be upgrades, and there'll be like actually 4 new hospitals or something like that, Charlie. I mean, come on. I think the idea that he's going to build 40 new hospitals is for the birds to think of, Charlie, because it was always a misleading statistic, I think, in my opinion. And in that fact, the National Office for Statistics are probing now, Charlie. I mean, come on, how is he only being probed about this now? It's quite insane. I mean, it should have been probed quite a long time ago when he kept claiming that we're going to be 40 new hospitals, and they're only going to be built, 5 or 6, and the rest of them are going to be upgrades. An upgrade, Charlie, is not a new hospital. We know that for certain. So the idea that you class, an upgrade as a new hospital is quite, I think, for the birds, Charlie. Like I said, it's a ridiculous idea. As well, the Sunday Express leads. Boris told we need to tax cuts. We need to tax cuts now. Yeah, well, we've been told plenty of that times before, Charlie, and yet he hasn't listened.
And they're raising taxes on everything, including fuel, which is unbelievable.
Well, fuel duty, they tax fuel duty. They dropped the 5p of it, but 5p was worthless, Charlie. I mean, if you tax the whole, if you get rid of the whole lot, you would have really then be able to, have a bigger effect on fuel potentially. Well, so it's a bit ridiculous, the idea that if you think about it, Charlie, that he would have been able to just cut the VAT fuel duty VAT by a load is really could have been realistic, Charlie. But it's a shame he didn't end up doing that because he settled for a 5p one, which was worthless at the end of the day when gas price was going up to many pounds, Charlie. By the way, you probably can see in America stuff that areas like America, Charlie, it's starting to gradually come down, not by much, but it's gradually coming down a little bit as well from the previous few weeks. But it's still very high, Charlie. No doubt about it. There still needs to be a decline needed, I think, at the moment as well, Charlie. So yeah, Boris told we need to cut tax cuts now. I mean, come on, you could have done this ages ago. I mean, instead we've had a tax increasing conservative government, Charlie. Boris told we need to tax cuts now. I mean, yeah, you should have done that ages ago, Charlie. The Sunday Telegraph has gone the PM turned blind eye to sex pest ward with fresh allegations emerge as revealed quiet in disgust over Pincher's role. I mean, yeah, exactly, Charlie. What's been bad for the Prime Minister in this episode, Charlie, is the fact that he potentially knowingly knew about these allegations, Charlie, of Chris Pincher, and yet he still made them Deputy Chief Whip, and it was ignored all along, Charlie. I mean, that is not a good indictment for the Prime Minister. Indeed, it's a terrible indictment, Charlie. If you're doing sex pests like that, being a sex pest like that, and nobody knows about it. I mean, yes, there should be independent verification processes, Charlie. No doubt about it. I do agree. It's that those sort of things are needed. But I can't believe he was even given that role if he was known to have allegations against him. But they still went ahead with it anyway. It's quite something. So yeah, I think it's these sort of allegations should not be overlooked, Charlie. But it's ridiculous that he managed to get a role within the government, Charlie, based on these allegations. The warning sign should have been a long way away there as well. And I think it's quite a shame that you put someone into government like that. I think it's a terrible idea, Charlie. That even happened as well. I'll tell you what, Charlie. We'll do other papers since some of them have not come out yet. Let's do doing the Saturday papers. The Daily Mirror came up. My guilt over Huntley as well. This, I believe, is a previous event that happened, Charlie. A grooming gang victim of the Solomon murder in Huntley has told her guilt after refusing to shop the killer when he had sex with her at 15. I mean, this is a very horrible case, Charlie, of grooming gangs and grooming people into evil acts. And this is 20 years on of Ian Huntley, of the grooming incidents there. The ex has said that he was evil. I wish I turned him in before he killed the girls. Yeah, I can understand the guilt that the ex is facing. Well, we wish her all the best, Charlie, because there's obviously a lot of bad memories of what happened there, Charlie. It's no doubt about that one as well.
Mm.
The Mail goes for groping Tory was too drunk to speak. Yeah. Excuse me. I'm not surprised, Charlie. No doubt about it. If the fact that he was drinking in the bar, Charlie, so much and embarrassing himself, is enough for resignation matter itself. I mean,
Hello, I'm still
I
here,
think-
guys. Thank you after last week.
yeah.
I
And
admit, I had a little too much on Sunday last week, so
now you
I am
brought that
happy
up,
to
Charlie.
say that the
Yeah,
Tory
you
MP,
had
I'm
too
sure, was
much.
too drunk to speak.
You had too much. I know you went to a wedding or something, and you had too much, Charlie.
Only 3, but that Tory MP probably had more than me. Tons
Yeah, he
more.
probably had, Charlie. No doubt about it. I guess you were too drunk to speak yourself, but not. But you weren't doing stupid actions. I have to say, Charlie, by the sounds of it. But yeah, no, I sort of think, Charlie, that Parliament should look at the parliamentary bar rules, because we've had too many incidents like this, Charlie, where there's been allegations of groping, inappropriate conduct, sexual misconduct, just inappropriate and insulting behaviour, Charlie. It's not. I think there should be rules that are looked at here, Charlie, because it cannot be allowed to keep on continuing. I think that these sort of incidents continue to happen and continue to get promoted. It's just not on. And I think, the parliamentary bars are good. It's a force for good if people behave and have a nice, relaxed time, Charlie. But when we have incidents like that, you sort of want to reconsider the rules and everything like that, Charlie. It's annoying that it keeps happening. Let's go to some of the others actually that not come out at the moment. Therefore, the others. Actually, we've had the Observer. The Guardian's that one. Is the Saturday paper. The Observer's the Sunday paper. Christopher Johnson over whip suspended. Let's do the Times. Obviously, Chris Pincher's facing fresh allegations as well, like we just seen tonight, Charlie, one of anonymous Tory MP. There's also others that come forward as well, Charlie, according to the Times, of allegations of assault and inappropriate conduct, Charlie, as well from Chris Pincher. I expect we're going to face a by-election soon, Charlie. I think Chris Pincher range of inappropriate conduct is increased so much that he'll probably be forced to resign soon, Charlie, from his actual seat. And I think it'll be well deserved if that's the case, because I think there'll probably be by-election there. As a Labour's could be, you could say, second favourites based on the seats and the demographic there. But I think it'll be a bit more difficult I think the Conservatives could potentially hold that seat potentially if anything happens there at the moment. The Daily, we've done the Express, and the Financial Times goes for air travellers face years of rising fares, Charlie. That's Ryan O'Leary, the boss of Ryanair, who's obviously sticking up for the tourist industry, Charlie. And yes, rising fares is not really surprising, Charlie. We've had cost of living inflation increases as well, Charlie. It's not really surprised that there are problems with customers being unable to afford flights, Charlie, and not being able to have the money to go abroad. It's getting more expensive these days. It's going to continue to get more expensive, Charlie. Let's go with the Daily Star for their comedy view of the world, Charlie, as well. This goes on the fact that a gatehead pigeon has been found in the United States. It's heading back to the United Kingdom, Charlie. According to the Daily Star, nab him, jabbing, tabbing, grabbing, stop that pigeon now. Bird heading home to Gateshead, found 4,000 miles away in Alabama. That is a bird that can fly, Charlie, no doubt about it. 4,000 miles. I couldn't even last that long on a plane, Charlie. Let me say, I've never been on a plane. I don't think I could last that distance on a plane. I'd be tired. I'll be getting jet lagged by the end of the day, Charlie, no doubt about it. As well. Let me see if there's any more that have come out tomorrow. Not at the moment, but I will do the eye instead, Charlie. As well.
The eye headline goes with Johnson hit by backlash for protecting groping MPs.
Yeah, not surprising as well. Like I said, Charlie, he shouldn't be. The fact that the Prime Minister angers Tory colleagues by trying to protect Clint's picture following allegations that MP drunkenly groped two men at private members' clubs, Charlie. number 10 insisted last night that the night before actually that Chris Pincher will remain an MP, will remain on the whip. That didn't happen, Charlie. The position was so terrible, and they had to U-turn 24 hours later, Charlie, following more allegations. It's not really that surprising, to be fair, mate. I mean, the allegations are quite serious as well, but that's the papers I believe that I've done, Charlie. I can't see any more papers that are out at the moment. We'll probably get some before 10:30. But yeah, that's papers for Saturday and for Sunday, Charlie.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say, plenty of papers there that will put us in the mindset of that. But that's all I can say for papers on the show. But moving on now to the Great British Stars and Red Devils of the Week. Oh, here we go. I'm putting the ghost face on there because it's time to talk about the Great British Stars and Red Devils of the Week. Well, let's start with my Great British Star nominations this week. Now, one of my nominations goes to, well, this is a controversial one, if you ask me, because if you've been asking about the fear-mongering scientists from COVID-19 Theatreland, you better be interested to tell, because earlier on in the show, we saw plenty of opposition to measures. I'm talking about Alan Miller and Neil Oliver, who both on GB News last week gave powerful messages for governments around the world to stop using crazy measures to control people's lives. I put out on a comment on Twitter earlier this week about why lockdowns alone are damaging to the risk of many people. The risk of damaging to mental health, to the economy and stuff like that. It is very clear to me that I am not making a comparison and I'm being blindsided here, but actually COVID is still no longer a threat to our country now. Despite people still getting virus, the pandemic has now passed. It's not an emergency. And I think for countries like Ireland to suggest that we're going to go back to implementing mask wearing indoors, come on, are you mad to do that? So that's my first nomination there, people standing up against these wicked, crooked scientists. Another nomination, though, goes to, you know what? Let's go for a nomination on the positive news section now that I am going to give up for you tonight. And this nomination is going to go to a very interesting person that I think will deserve a mention to you all. Let's have a look on the Good News Network for what I'm on about. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk about this person right here. And this one's very interesting. This is a prostate cancer breakthrough that could help stop tumours become spreading after it becomes resistant to constant therapy. Let's have a look at this, guys, very quickly. Another nomination for this is this. Now, prostate cancer is very much horrible. We need to raise money to help people who suffer with this. And it's a prostate cancer breakthrough could help stop the tumour spreading up from resistant to current therapy, scientists say. The anti-hormone treatment blocks the signal set up by testosterone that stimulates tumour and growth. But eventually the cancer cells become more resistant, growth better in the body. An international research team led by the Dutch scientists found that proteins that normally regulate through the cardiac and rhythm or body clock dampen the effect of anti-hormonal therapy. The breakthrough drug means it could be repurposed and have saved a decade of testing. It also means that it could help save thousands of lives. That's my honorary nomination for the Star. Zach, what do you make to the nominations for the Star so far?
Yeah, pretty good, Charlie. Not bad nominations, especially with the prostate cancer one. I would say for the COVID one, I kind of think the risk is less. It's got watch for it, but I think the risk is kind of less now than what we previously had before. There's no doubt about it. So I kind of half agree with the nominations this week, but I wouldn't put them as the Stars, Neil Oliver, and that other one, but nevertheless, I kind of get why they're saying that message now. I'm kind of leaning into that direction. Not totally dismissing it, but sort of, got to live with it.
What's your nominations at for the star?
Oh yes, my nominations this week, Charlie. I'm going to give the star this week to the Ukrainian soldiers who have now retaken Snake Island, Charlie. Yes, you remember that Snake Island, Charlie, was a very famous area, Charlie, in Ukraine. That was very ironically remembered for the moment where a Ukrainian military told Russian soldiers to go F themselves. They certainly have been effed, Charlie, because now Ukraine have took that island back from Russia, Charlie. Russia have surrendered. They have left the island. The Ukrainians have retook it, Charlie. And the Ukrainians, it's all theirs again. Fair play to the Ukrainians as well, Charlie. They are the British stars for me of the week for doing that as well. The Red Devil this week, Charlie. There's 2 Red Devils I'm thinking of, Charlie, as well. First of all, Chris Pincher for pinching by name and pinching by his actions, for groping several anonymous people and Tory and a Conservative MP, and having the wit's power to be able to influence his position, Charlie. It's been another shocking allegation, another week of Tory sleaze and sex pests in Westminster, Charlie, that Chris Pincher has to be the honour of the terrible Red Devil of the week. Another Red Devil I'm going to give to, Charlie, is Nick Kyrgios, the tennis player, Charlie, at Wimbledon, who seems to have an attitude whenever he plays cricket, Charlie. He was complaining about the fans. He was complaining about the ball boys on the pitch, Charlie, and he was complaining about the ref. Well, if you don't like it, Nick Kyrgios, then you can go and stop playing tennis and play on your own if you really want to. But he sounds like a miserable old brat from what I've seen in the posts. Even Piers Morgan was posting about how he's a miserable brat and everything like that. So Nick Kyrgios gets the Red Devil as well this week. The honorary mention, Charlie. I want to make an honorary mention this week, Charlie, to Dame Deborah. I think the name is Dame Deborah James, Charlie, who sadly passed away with bowel cancer in the last few days, Charlie. Very sad news about Dame Deborah James, who was a podcaster, an educational journalist. And she went on to host You, Me and the Big C podcast, Charlie, about her struggles with bowel cancer and with illness as well. It was very sad, and she was obviously on Last Times, unfortunately. And 3 days ago, the day came, unfortunately, where she sadly had to pass away, Charlie, due to bowel cancer. So may she rest in peace. And what a great bit of memories that she's managed to make for everybody in the United Kingdom and the whole community of women and girls, Charlie, who have been going through bowel cancer as well. It's been incredible listening to her. And
I think she deserves a nomination this week for the Great British Star.
Yeah, she gets the honorary mention for me, Charlie. No doubt about it.
And that's all of our honorary mentions this week, guys. Dame Deborah James is an incredible person, incredible asset to British television and British podcasts in general. Unfortunately, died earlier this week, aged 52. Just over 50 years old there, from bowel cancer. Horrible, horrible thing. I know Adele Roberts has been through all of that, but she is, I believe, being cured of it. Thank goodness for that. She's been cured. But moving on to my nominations for the Red Devil. Well, again, more mixed nominations, if you ask me. I'm going to start by the first nominations, giving it to Russia. Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov get nominations this week for the indiscriminate bombing of Kremenchuk shopping centre and Odessa, indiscriminate barbaric missile attacks and bombing raids continuing in Ukraine. Huge reports of civilian casualties this week, increasing by the minute. I have to say, those two are clearly responsible for their actions. And another nomination goes to, well, let's say a couple of other people. I'm going to give also, you could add in there as well, Mark Drakeford from Wales for allowing a basic income scheme to Wales. Basically means handing £1,600 a month to do nothing to 18-year-olds. And the Tories accusing the Labour administration of handing out free money. Well, I bet that shows you why Mark Drakeford got my nomination there. My honorary nomination, though, and this is one that I'm going to give it to, Bernie Ecclestone for supporting Vladimir Putin, saying that he would take a bullet for the Russian president in supporting the Russian president for his barbaric war in Ukraine. I used to stand by Bernie a lot, but not anymore. That comment was
ridiculous.
So what do you make to the rest of my nominations?
Yeah. Can I add also as well? Can I just on this? Can I add also another Red Devil this week, because I just remembered Nelson PK. I want to add as a Red Devil as well for some rather racist comments about Lewis Hamilton earlier in the week, Charlie. It's been alleged that some of the stuff he said was ridiculous. And I agree about the Bernie Ecclestone thing as well, Charlie, because there's some terrible old men have just kind of to say that basically racism is fine, whatever it is. I don't care if you're Brazilian, you're German, you're British, you're Italian, whatever. If you use the N-word in any derogatory way, Charlie, then you really shouldn't be part of the Formula One community anyway, Charlie. So, that's another one I think we should add to the list of idiots of the week. No doubt about it. Nelson PK is one of them. I believe he's been banned from the paddock indefinitely, Charlie, which is good news. And his honorary title at the British Racing Club has been removed as well, Charlie. And it's probably going to be gone completely soon as well. So add another one to that as well, Charlie. But yeah, ridiculous stuff as well. Couldn't believe the stuff Bernie Ecclestone's come out with. I think he's just turned into a bit of an old dinosaur, if you ask me, Charlie. Some of the comments of this week, but yeah. Need to change attitudes, I think, Charlie, to some of this, because it's, if you're going to use the N-word, then, you live in the past.
Yeah, well, that's all I can say, guys. Tonight is complete. That is all of the show tonight. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next week for more action on the Charlie Tyler Show. Take care, everyone, and good night.